Welcome back to Hassan's Hits. If you have not already subscribed, can you please hit that subscribe button? And if you have already subscribed, thank you for the support. UFC 281 came and went. And that's not enough. Come on. One of the greatest events of all time. All time. The entire main card was finishes. Every event in New York has been spectacular. So this event was incredible. One of the greatest cards of all time. Pereira with the knockout in the 5th round. Poirier and Chandler went to absolute war. And obviously, like I said, Poirier levels to this game. Having said that, I want to focus in on something different for this video. I want to focus in on what makes the UFC, the brand itself, Zuffa, incredible, amazing. The best company for fans. I want to focus in on that because Dana was asked after the event about Zuffa boxing, and this is what he had to say.
That's what makes this sport so great, And again, I don't mean to shit on boxing, but look at what's going on with the Crawford fight. Like, the fight isn't being made that should be made. I don't care. I don't care. I mean, that's not my world. I don't, I was just using them as an example of making the fights that should be made.
You just said it's not your world, so is Zuffa boxing officially done?
No.
Dana has talked about, venturing into boxing and signing fighters so that he could deliver the kind of product that he delivers as far as the UFC goes in boxing. Now this is big because people don't understand. I watch both sports. I like MMA, I like boxing. I actually started watching boxing, before MMA. So just to speak on how incredible it would be to have a guy like Dana running a promotion in boxing. And it would be amazing if he could monopolize boxing kind of like he has MMA. Now that would be much tougher to do, obviously, because MMA has been, around shorter than boxing. Boxing has been around, for a long time. One of the, earliest sports. It would be much tougher to do in boxing, obviously. But if he was able to do what he does in MMA and boxing, it would make the sport so much better. In the old days, one belt, in each division, you had the best fighting the best. It's been watered down to the point where promoters don't want to work with each other. Fighters are not fighting each other in their primes, and it's getting absolutely ridiculous. We watched Pereira come into the UFC. He has 5 fights under his belt in the UFC. However, the UFC said, hey, this is a guy who presented challenges for Izzy and kickboxing. Let's shoot him up to the top and see if he can take out Izzy, right? It would be a great fight. It would be a great build-up. Every fan wants to see this. He gets there and he gets the belt. This would never happen in boxing. John Jones versus DC would never happen in boxing. You look at boxing right now. You look at, Spence versus Crawford. They've been in negotiations since 2017. Right now, we should be seeing the 3rd Spence versus Crawford fight. Instead, we have yet to see this fight, and they're haggling over negotiations, and each promotion doesn't want to work with the other promotion. Whereas the UFC, it's always been, other than, some rare opportunities and, rare fights where it's just money fights and things like that. It's always been, the best against the best. And there's no, holdups and contract negotiations and different promotions and all these things. That's why I'm saying, I would hope they would monopolize boxing like they did MMA. Again, I'm speaking from a fan's perspective, purely from a fan's perspective. I would love for the fighters to get, as much pay as they can get and all of these things. And that's a whole separate video. We can't get into that right now. However, I'm not out here, pocket watching and all of these things. I'm just saying, as a fan, from a fan's perspective, yeah, I love that, the UFC has monopolized MMA. It gets rid of, potential situations where, this guy signed with that other promotion, this guy signed with that other promotion. They don't want to work together. We can't see the best fighting the best. Instead, all of the best are under one umbrella. And, if Dana could go over to boxing and get these guys under good contracts that they want to be in and somehow monopolize boxing, Spence and Crawford would be done within the first year. The greatest thing about the UFC is you're watching an entire card that is stacked, you know, like last Saturday night's card. If the main event doesn't deliver, you have potentially 2 or 3 other fights on the main card, on the pay-per-view, that deliver. You are essentially paying for 4 or 5 fights on the main card that looks great, right? Whereas boxing, you're paying for 1 fight. The rest of the card doesn't even matter. If Dana and, you know, the Zuffa brand got over to boxing and somehow monopolized boxing, right? You would see a card with Fury versus Usyk as the main event. Underneath that, you might have Spence versus Crawford. You also might have, you know, Gervonta versus Ryan Garcia. That's what the UFC is. For, you know, boxing fans that are not in tune with MMA and the UFC, that's what the UFC does. But who knows, you know, boxing has been around for a long time. These promoters are, you know, not gonna lose ground, but it would be great to see Dana venture over to boxing and monopolize it. Let me know what you guys think. Comment, like, subscribe. Peace.